I saw you apply to the Flight Academy again.
I'm your new wingman, sir.
Coil. Local scum use it for cover to launch attacks. This is their turf, so move when I'm moving. Keep your eyes open.
No sudden moves.
Who the hell are you?
We're OMC. And OMC belongs to Sato Khan.
Is that your boss? Are we supposed to be scared of him or something?
Yeah.
The OMC aren't the only ones listening into comms.
All ships, we're under attack by Vanduul forces. Repeat, we are under attack.
There have been battles. There have been losses. Each and every one of you has proven yourself time and again. We will not lose the system. We will not fall back.
Form up, Cal. You got a point.
Copy that. Tally's on me. Let's say hi.
We will win. Because we have to.
Man, I haven't seen that in ages. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Citizen. This is episode 101. We're talking about firepower. And we have today with us a special guest, Starjump Grim. How are you doing, Starjump Grim? Or do you want to be called Grim? Which one?
Grim's fine. Grim, Starjump, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Grim's fine. I appreciate you having me on. Always a blast.
This is like your second time or third time on with us?
I think it's second. I think.
Second, yeah.
Second.
So you're almost a regular here.
Yeah, I'm starting to get my feet. Yeah.
And Drakazak, thank you for the gift strap to Starjump Graham. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
We had some more returning champions with us today. Welcome to Karate. This is your third show now, I believe.
Yeah, it is my third. Yeah, it's my third.
For the subscription.
Glad to be here, Best Call.
Thanks for the follow.
Okay. You're also becoming regular here. This is like what? Within like 6 weeks? Your third show in 6 weeks?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Don't be like me and you're welcome, okay?
Well,
and speaking of welcome, we're not welcome. Go Map. How are you doing? You're not gonna say
that's cute. I think I had like 3 shows in 4 weeks. No, hey man, it's always a pleasure to be here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else on a Sunday evening than right here, especially when it's not football season.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, what about? I remember that one Super Bowl night. Like I said, this is the episode talking about firepower. We're talking about ships and Star Citizen with the Idris side and up. So that includes the ship that you see on the screen there, and quite a few others. And we started with the UEE video. That was the video for the promo for Squadron 42. I haven't seen that in ages. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Kaladi?
I can remember every single line that's said in that trailer.
How many times have you seen it?
I've seen it a lot of times, but I haven't seen it recently. But because I've seen it a lot of times, I can still remember every single line in that video, in that trailer.
Yeah, how about you, Gomab?
I've seen it a lot. I've seen it a lot. Yeah, I've seen it a lot. And every time it's beautiful, but just can't wait. I don't like to see it. I don't want to see it no more because it makes me anxious. I want to.
Right? Yeah, it's like I was almost drooling thinking about it. But to me, it's like I think that video came out like in 2016, so it already shows it's already a little bit dated. And that's kind of sad. What do you think about the video, Graham?
For me, it just reminds me of how much we haven't seen, and that's both frustrating and equally exciting because we're going to see it eventually. But just in the video, seeing some of those environments look absolutely epic, so I'm pretty excited about that. And watching that video, I mean, I love all the Star Citizen ship commercials and stuff, but watching that one, I feel like Chris Roberts's director hat really comes through on that one. You can tell it's got it has all those like touchstones of like a film trailer, like a really epic film trailer.
Cool. All right. Thank you. So yeah, up first we're going to talk about. I've already introduced Graham, and we're getting most of the info from the Star Citizen Wiki. But first up, we're going to talk about the Idris, the MNP, and a bit of the K. So yes, so right now you're having the size comparison chart with the Retribution at the top, but we're going to start from the smallest to the biggest. So the Idris M&P. What are your thoughts about the Idris, Graham?
Well, it's a ship that I really wasn't interested in for a long time until recently, where I finally had to like pledge for this thing. I love the design, and I love that while it's going to be a threat, that ship in the verse, I love that a majority of its firepower is concentrated in one direction. So it's going to be a ship that to really fully employ its armament, you're going to have to use it in smart and kind of like tactical ways. But then on the other hand, it's a capital ship, so it's going to have all those other functions that go along with it. So whereas you have other ships that have tons of turrets and stuff on them, and while the Idris does have that, the Idris's real focus is right out that front end, and you're going to have all the people on the ship, the engineers, the pilots, all your crew working in tandem to make sure that one devastating weapon is pointed the right way. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be in the front of that thing. Kyle, can you do me a favor and read the blurb for the Idris?
Yeah, sure thing. All right, so the Idris M-P frigate. The Idris M Military is a frigate used by the UEE military. It lends its name to the standard line of frigates in the United Empire of Earth Navy, or UEEN. Idrises are larger than traditional corvettes, but smaller than destroyers and destroyer escorts. They can be found in most active battle group formations in the human military. They are used for everything from long-duration patrols to scouting dangerous jump points to interdiction. In addition to typical capital weaponry, Idris-class ships maintain a flight deck and a small spacecraft detachment.
Thank you, Doug, again for the gift sub. So yeah, after you read out that, what are your thoughts about the Idris, Kalrati?
Oh man, so I'm gonna kind of touch on what Starjump had mentioned there with regards to the engineering gameplay, and ever since we saw heard some more information from the EUPU feature team, I'm very curious as to see how the demands that it will take player-wise to operate the ship and actually maximize its functionality, but also curious to see how it'll feel when a ship like this experiences something like if when it's disabled, for instance, and how long it'll take or how difficult it may be to really get it back in order if it's under a lot of fire. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it being player operated in the future.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, there's quite a few people who who bought Idrises who haven't planned ahead for how many people it will take to run this ship. What do you think about that, Mab?
Yeah, a lot of folks, they they see a big ship with big guns and they pull out their wallets and spend big money. I think I can't wait. I know people that have Idrises, and I can't wait to have one of my alts like permanently just parked on that ship, so that whenever they're playing on it, then I can just log into that alt and be a crewman on that ship. It's going to be fun. There's no way in the world I would ever buy one because I don't want to have to marshal together that many people in order to make this ship as effective as it needs to be, right? As you need to have it. You got to have a lot of people to make this ship effective.
Exactly. Can you imagine being responsible for not just the people on it, but the ship too, or like being responsible for all that and the logistic of running a ship that size?
And whatever you're carrying, because you got to imagine all those, like Gomez said, all these people come on board your ship to help man it. They're going to be bringing their own personal inventories, weapons, armor, all that. You're kind of responsible for all that. So in a sense, you almost become this big raid leader. There's a lot of stress, I think, associated with that.
Yeah, I was asked, Unique Gaming asked, how many Idris ships do you have, FC? 0. I don't have anything bigger than Endeavor, which is what I have behind me. That's my capital ship. It's not really called a capital ship. I'm just calling it that myself. So that's behind me.
Talking about the multi-crew gameplay, though, one thing that I think players will have to deal with on the Idris specifically is a lot of people look at its internal hangar as this, big benefit, and all it carries, it's, the fighters internally, they're well protected. But one thing I think everyone's going to need to think about too is if this ship is in like an active, battle zone, whether that's NPCs or especially other players, if you have the front and the rear ramp open so that the internal hangar is accessible, you're going to have to keep opening and closing that in order to protect the Idris, because the last thing you want to do is just leave it open and some enemy fighter snoops in there, and next thing you know, you had a boarding party inside the Idris. So the Idris, one of those multi-crew stations I can already see, being needed would be something akin to an air boss in the Navy, someone that's controlling that air traffic, specifically coming in and out of the Idris, and thus closing those doors, opening those doors, deciding when it's appropriate to open them. So, ships like the Kraken may need that a little bit as well, but at least on the Kraken, ships can kind of come and go as they please because of the open pads. The Idris, that's going to be a little different.
So I have a question for you. Do you believe an NPC would be better at that, or would you need a player to rotate around full time?
I don't know, because I don't know if how it's going to function. For example, if you had an NPC assigned to that, air boss role, and you're sitting in a fighter in the hangar of the Idris, do you then call up on your Mobiglass, the ATC hotkey button or whatever, and then ATC just opens the door? But then if you're the ship captain and you're in an active battle zone and the ship's getting hit hard by enemy fire, do you necessarily want to be opening up those big armored doors? So you kind of have to wonder, how vulnerable will the Idris be with those doors open? I mean, we obviously will have its shields, but it does make you wonder, because there's going to be, especially when you're playing against human adversaries, there's going to be that one that if he sees those doors open, he's going to try to fly inside of the Idris and land and get out and wreak havoc.
I'm curious then if there are, or if they'll give us any. Well, we know, for instance, we're seeing on the Cutlass Steel, right? We have the auto-mounted turrets. Mm-hmm. Of course, inside of these ships, we don't actually have those turrets, at least for now. But I'm curious to see if CIG will give us the ability to custom place turrets somewhere, that in case one of these skilled players were to just fly into that hangar space and just wreak havoc, because we'll be really vulnerable.
You don't need none of that, man. Just park a Cuddy Steel right in the middle of the flight deck, and you can take care of anybody that comes in there. Just have everybody sitting on those guns on the Cuddy Steel, man, and that's it. That's it. That's all you need.
Speaking of
useful ship.
Speaking of turrets, I was just shown the loadout for it. So the Idris M has 10 destroyer mass drivers. For turrets, it has 2 side 2 Size 4 Revenant Gatling gun, 7 M9A laser cannon, and 5 Chief Galadriel laser repeaters, and also has 5 ASM 20 Class C Stalker missiles. So
that's a size 10. That's a size 10 destroyer mass driver. That's the rail gun on the front.
Oh,
that's what that is.
That's a 10. Okay, yeah, it's a 10. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's quite a bit of firepower. Would definitely want to be in the front of that ship because we've seen it a few times in game and in the PU on the live, especially for like Invictus Week and whatnot. So I mean, I remember. I think it was the Javelin tour, so we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that later. But one of the tours, I think that it convinced a lot of people to melt that ship because they realized it's too big for them to handle with the crew that they think that they foresee them having.
Yeah, I mean it's. I think when people got to tour those during Invictus, it was a little bit of an eye opener. You know what I mean? Just in terms of how large these ships are. And we know even as recent as not last Invictus, but the Invictus before that, when John Crew did that, Ships of Invictus talk, he was specifically asked about, the plan for capital ships and what it's going to take to run those. And he reiterated that a capital ship will be an org endeavor. That is the ultimate game design goal. We'll see if they stick to that. But, at least as recently as a year and a half ago, we heard from the vehicle director that capitals are supposed to be org projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, if everyone has questions, like the Nightbot said, go ahead and use the reward token down below the chat box, and we'll answer it at the end of the show. So we should ask questions if we have anything.
Yeah.
So that we most talk about the Idris M and P, but there's also the Idris K, which is a kit. I don't know much about the Idris K, but I'm not sure if there's a lot of information out there. But either of you have information about the Idris K versus the M and P?
It essentially takes the P and gets it close to the M in terms of armament. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure someone in chat could probably correct me, I believe you do lose a little bit of cargo capacity on the Idris M, and that's primarily because of missile storage, I believe, because I think that's something that the P doesn't have is the missile racks. It also doesn't have the size 10 mass driver, so the K kit gives you a size 10 energy weapon, but I don't think it's the mass driver. I think that is unique to the Idris M. I think the K kit gives you a different size 10 weapon. So yeah, essentially the K kit is supposed to bring up the armament of the P close or in approximation to an M.
Okay, I gotta give you Unique this one. This is a good one. The Idris K pop is made in Korea. Good one, Unique.
Of course.
There you go.
You know my sense of humor.
The Idris K pop.
We touched a little bit on the Javelin, so let's go to the Javelin next. I believe there's a video that should come out. But go Mav, you want to read about the Javelin, please?
Sure. Designed for use by the UEE military, the Javelin is a massive modular capital ship that can be appropriated for entrepreneurial use. With a detailed interior, plenty of modular room options, and a high crew capacity, the Javelin is a ship that has made a name for itself in a variety of roles.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts about the Javelin after reading that, Gomab?
Again, it's one of those military ships that can, heavily armored, heavily armed, very versatile, and has been used, has been sold to the private sector for whatever they may decide to use it for. I imagine for, protecting trade routes or protecting land claims that may or may not be outside of UEE space, so the Navy might not be able to get there to help you out. So you may need to go ahead and make sure you have your own crew and fleet of ships there to protect against anybody who may want to encroach on your territory. So it just means it's accessible to others outside of the regime that is in charge right now.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the ship matrix for the sizes. The Idris is size 242 meters in length, and the Javelin is size 480 meters in length. So quite a big jump. It's almost twice the size of an Idris. And so, like I said, we got the two of these on the Invictus Week last year, and we didn't really get access to all of it, right, Kyle?
No, and I've got a question for all of you, really. And so when the Javelin becomes more accessible to players, right? Well, becomes accessible to players as a whole. Do you think, in the beginning at least, we'll be seeing players just branching out? Let's say in the first couple of months, right? Do you think we'll be seeing the Javelin in like the more secure space because, let's say, an org or so may not have enough personnel to run it, or based on what you've seen, what from people who own a Javelin, do you think that they'll just go right into the dangerous territory where the Javelin can actually be of some use? Because the thing is, with the kind of operational costs and the manpower that you would need, even if you're hiring NPCs also, if you keep a ship like that, or if you fly around a ship like that in secure space, you're not really finding much action, right? And as a result, you may not necessarily encounter a lot of, let's say, rewards, mission-wise, etc., to really justify the upkeep. So what do you think in the first 3 months or so?
Yeah, if somebody gave you a fighter jet today, you lose it next week because you wouldn't have enough money to pay for parking. Right? There's going to be a lot of people that have these big ships that are, when the game comes out, I don't care how much starter UEC you have, you won't have enough money to lift it off 5 feet off the ground.
Yeah, I hope at those beginning stages, it's extremely rare sight, even if it's owned by more people than we see.
Right.
Yeah, everybody will have to pull their resources together just to get it in orbit.
So as long as I maintain 4 feet, I'm fine. That what you're saying?
Yeah. There's another aspect though of capitals that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think if CIG implemented this, it would give capital ships like the Javelin and the Idris and other ships like that, it would give them usage in non-hostile space, and that would be to do this. So currently, with 317, we're going to be getting the quantum system injected into the game in a very limited way, right? I think it's just with some commodities like refuel and stuff like that. But we know that quantum is going to dictate a lot of what happens in the verse around us. Well, if you think to large military vessels now in the real world, like if you think of a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group, the U.S. will send that to certain waters, even if they know it's not going to get in combat, just the act of sending it is almost some sort of gesture, right? And can affect things around it. And I think it would be really cool if, for example, if you took a Javelin into Stanton, or let's say you took a Javelin into Pyro, if NPC or other players detected you on their radars and fed that information back to Quantum, that backend system, it would be cool if Quantum would start adjusting things based off the knowledge that a capital ship like a Javelin has entered the system. And what I mean by that is, if you have a Javelin over in Quadrant A of Pyro, I would think a lot of small pirate ships would kind of avoid that area. You know what I mean? And probably hang out in quadrants 2, 3, and 4 instead of hanging out in quadrant 1, because they know a Javelin is there and there's a major threat there. So it could be cool if Quantum, based off player capital ships, started adjusting dynamically to where if you were in an org and a lot of other orgs are complaining about pirates and stuff ganking them all the time, and you know, Magnus, you send out your Idris doesn't even have to really get in battle, but just the act of flying around and patrolling the system,
it could be deterrent.
Yeah, it could shift the balance a little bit. That's something I would love to see in Quantum personally for these big capitals.
I would take it a step further. I would just take it a small step further and say not just be in the system, but like a Javelin could be in the system to join the fight with the bad guys, right?
Exactly,
they don't know. Yeah. So it's you know, Quanta should react to their actions. So if they come, that's one thing. But if they start blowing up Ninetales, or if they start blowing up Xenothreat, or if they start blowing up UEE personnel, right? Then that's where Quanta will adjust to temper the response. So that.
Yeah, because if the Javelin just shows up, they're not doing anything. Fall, you know, it could be just fleet week, and the sailors are there for like some R&Rs for all we know.
And that could maybe play into the reputation system, though. So, for example, let's say if a pirate org has their Javelin out in a system, and it's somebody in a Star Runner or a Herald got a really good scan on it, right? Like a really good scan. They know who's on board. They know the name of the ship and all that. And let's say they have a really high pirate reputation. It would be cool then to see maybe that news is getting out there because data runners have scanned it. And then maybe you do see other pirates start popping up in the system because they feel safe because this Idris is now out there. Essentially what I'm kind of going for here is that, like, I would love for CIG to find a reason to just simply patrol in capital ships instead of just bringing them out to shoot. You know what I mean? That could be really interesting because you're going to need a reason to bring out some of these ships because they're going to be huge money drains on an org's coffers, both in fuel, armament, all that kind of stuff.
And what you say, it could depend on like the quantity, you know, what's available. Because as we saw in the trailer from the opening video, we are at war with the Vanduul, so they might not be available for certain crowd systems that you know don't count as much or not a priority to the UEE. So it would be nice, but I don't think there's. I'm not sure what the quantity is going to be for these big ships.
Yeah, I want to see them. I want to see response times and locations play into what you can actually do before they can get there. So if you see if a Javelin is spotted on one side of Pyro, you know, you can go and wreak havoc on this settlement before they can get there to respond. You just got to get in and out before they can get into the AO.
And I think it'd be cool, again, if all this is based off if the information is gathered. If an Idris comes in the system and no one scanned it, then obviously it would have no effect. But one thing I will say is, based off my poking around, which everyone knows I love ship models, I am anticipating that this Invictus, I'm thinking we'll get to tour much more of the Idris, much more of the Javelin, because there is. I'll just leave it at this. There is a lot more of the interior in game than we've seen that are actually in the files that's there in the Idris, in the Javelin. I keep saying Idris. There's a lot. I'm talking multiple decks, multiple, if not the entire ship is there because the Javelin is done. So it'd be really cool if they, open it up a little bit more. I'm not expecting the whole ship to be open, but it'd be cool if a little bit more of the ship is opened up this year. I think that'd be really cool.
Especially that would make sense in lore because there will be some areas that are off limit to civilians. So. All right. So up next we have the Pegasus. I'm going to read this one. The Pegasus is an escort carrier. The RSI Pegasus class escort carrier is the Empire's premier small carrier, capable of supporting the operation of up to 32 starfighters far from friendly supply. Typically, it will accommodate 16 Hornet and 16 Gladiators, but the fighter groups can be tailored as mission demand. In addition to the fighters, there are also 2 Argo utility ships on board. If needed, 2 Retaliators can be held in the underslung position. Kalwadi, can you read the history of the Pegasus for me, please?
Yeah, sure. So the history of the Pegasus. The first Pegasus was constructed in the late 2520 during humanity's era of tension with the Xi'an and was subsequently stopped being produced in 2860 after tensions lowered. But in 2946, Admiral Ernst Bishop pressured Robert Space Industries to again start producing it after witnessing an outdated Perseus, the UEE-S Achilles, performing very effective against the Vanduul. RSI used this opportunity to redesign the Perseus for the civilian market and integrated a cargo bay capable of storing land vehicles into it.
Was that supposed to say Pegasus?
I think so.
Yeah.
I was just rolling with it. But yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got the Pegasus on the stream, the image of it right now. I can't really tell I cannot really tell the length of it from the screen, but it looks huge.
It's about 900.
See that
I believe it's 900 meters long.
Yeah, that dot right there is a Connie.
So it's about the length of the Bengal then, or
it's only about 100 meters short of the Bengal. I've actually seen 2 listed links for the Pegasus, which at one point was called the Panther. So sometimes you'll find it out there in the wild under the name Panther. But I've seen it listed at 990 meters and 900 meters. I think the more accurate measurement is 900 meters, though.
It'll probably get bigger than that. Cause how old is that data that you just saw?
I was gonna say.
Well, I think the last data is just from the video I think it's actually a subscriber vault thing that has a lot of the images that you're seeing right now. And then there's been some rumor to suggest that the Pegasus actually will be a ship that will be maybe briefly seen in episode 1 of Squadron, but it will actually feature more in episode 2. I don't know. That is purely just rumor I've heard. But besides these images, we haven't seen much. But based off the 3D model I'm seeing here, it looks like a lot of work has been done to it. And a lot of this it's very possible there's a lot of kit bashing going on here, but from my eyes, it looks like a pretty polished model.
Okay, and for the history that the Kawadi read, we think that was a mistake. So sorry about that. But this is an RSI ship. They make a few big ships. I believe the Bengal is RSI too. So RSI evidently a big ship maker in addition to like the smaller Aurora and Constellation. So. That's quite something for a manufacturer to have that much manufacturing capability. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and I believe, and I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I believe I've heard that RSI has some of the largest, if not the largest, capital shipyard. So they're really the primary shipbuilder for these type of ships because they have the ability to do so in lore. So yeah. And that'll come up a little bit when we talk about the Retribution for sure.
So as far as you know, there's no hologram or model that you can pull the Pegasus, right? You don't have a model for that or anything?
I do, but there's not one for the public. There's not one for the public. We have an image later we'll share that you'll see the Pegasus next to some other ships and you can kind of see how big it is. I will say that the model available to the public is pretty rough.
Where I was going with that is, I was just wondering, what do you know of the weapon complement on that thing? That's where I was going.
I'll be honest with you. I don't really know the weapon complement. What I can say is just kind of looking around the model is, and it's an extremely rough model. It's not as detailed as the one you're seeing here. It's more like the hollow model version of this. You can see the turrets quite clearly, and they're big. We're talking Javelin level turrets, and I'm talking like main Javelin turrets, not the ones on the side, but the big ones up on the top, and bottom of the rear of the Javelin. It's easily as big as that, if not bigger. So it's definitely got some monster guns on this thing, and it looked to me like it has 2 or 3 of those turrets on it, and then I'm sure there's a ton of small, tiny turrets that I can't even really make out. I mean, I think we know the Bengal has like 90 some odd turrets. I'm sure this ship is much the same.
Yeah, so this is more of a carrier, or they call it. They do actually call it a carrier. So it's more known for carrying ship than the weapon ship. So evidently, if you put like it carried like 32 starfighters. So imagine if all those starfighters were tanked. Imagine firepower that thing would have. Right, go man. Nothing go man.
Nothing. I'm using to open the doors and shoot the tanks out of it. I can see that being a valid gameplay. And then then they were like, "Oh, that's too powerful. We have to make the tanks shoot sideways."
So this ship is not won't be purchasable like the Bengal, right?
No.
Okay, I'm curious Okay, I'm curious if you guys think that similar to what CIG has said in the past, what we've speculated, if we'll probably find ships like these, like wreckages somewhere in space, and we'll have to repair them to some extent. We'll have to hold them in some way until someone takes it from us. Do you guys think that's going to be possible too, or do you think it's going to be more restricted as well?
I hope that's the case. I really do. I think they would make great. Again, they're to me they're akin to like a major raid, for in an MMO, like a RPG MMO. They're like the in-game raid, you know what I mean? And the cool thing about them is not only could you possibly take control of them in a limited fashion, but as we've heard from CIG many times, even with ships like the 890 jump and the 890 jump mission, they become their own massive FPS level in a sense. So there's a lot of gameplay to be had just from one of these ships floating broken in the verse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right.
I would love to see one of these ships being like totally, disabled, and it will take an org level effort, months. In order to secure it, right? It's got to be the sheer focus of your org to pour in time and resources like nothing you've ever seen. Yeah, just I mean to get in with the and not only just to repair it and get it functional and get it kind of like tied to you or your org, but you also have to defend it. Because while that's happening, again with Quanta, someone could stumble across the same thing and say, "Hey guys, there's this Pegasus that these guys are working on, and it's at 40% operational. Like, let's go take it from them and take it the rest of the way." And so somebody could come in and take it to 70% while your org regroups and comes again. And so it should be like a year or almost at least a year once the game comes out before we actually see an org controlled Pegasus, Bengal, any of these ones.
That is a challenge that many orgs will be happy to accept. I can see them doing maybe 6 months or maybe 3 months, just despite the expectations.
Yeah, but I want to see it be heavily contested, right? Make it, make it be something that is like, hey, this is an epicenter of conflict within the Star Citizen verse. And if somebody finds one of these things, meanwhile, while you're working on this one, you can be out searching for another one. CIG can say, hey, look, there's only 4 of these large, there's one Javelin, one Pegasus, one Bengal, and one Retribution out there for now. You guys go find it. And if once you find it, once they get operational, then maybe we'll spawn more or whatever. I would like to see something like that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something like EVE Online, like I mentioned it before, but to make a Titan, I believe it takes 3 months of production to make a Titan in EVE Online. So I mean, imagine if you find a derelict. Well, we probably won't be finding a derelict, but just to be able to defend and try to protect it while you're maintaining it and stuff like that, that's gonna be a huge challenge. So yeah, that'd be some great or gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Starfarer is the biggest refueler we're going to have in game, but this thing would take about 1,000 Starfarers to get her topped off minimum.
Yeah. And 50 what's that, Orions to mine enough, raw materials to repair it and all kind of other stuff, right? I wanted to bring every aspect of the game into play in order to just get this thing turned on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. So up next we have the Bengal carrier, and we have a video for that. So, go Matt, would you mind reading the Bengal, please?
Sure. So, the Bengal is a fleet carrier spacecraft manufactured by Robert Space Industries for the United Empire of Earth Navy. Bengal-class carriers carry multiple squadrons of fighters, bombers, and support craft, and typically form the nucleus of the UEE and Battle Fleet or Task Force Group. Their massive armaments and extremely heavy shielding make it nearly impossible for any individual craft to threaten them. It is 990 meters in length. She's a big
990. That's
monster.
a big one.
Almost a kilometer.
Yeah, almost a kilometer. Yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts about the Bengal?
She's a big one. She's a big one. Yeah. Look, how many? There's 40 anti-air turrets on her.
Let me go over all of them. So according to the
you asked me my thoughts. You gonna tell me?
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, it's okay. Look, I'm just gonna sit back and set my.
30 Kane is in the house here. So it has one bearing turret with 130 meter shipbuster railgun, 18 ASD ship-to-ship turret with dual ion cannon, 40 MA, well, I don't know what size those are, but 40 MA turrets, AA turrets with heavy duty laser cannon, 16 KNW rolling space frame with 20 missiles each, 4 Talon Creeper mine dispensers, ammunition, HE, EMP, web, nuclear, and antimatter. So thank you for letting me read on that go map. Please continue. I apologize for interrupting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. You were talking. I'm kidding. No, basically what I'm saying is it is armed to the teeth. It is, the definition of flying into the wood chipper. If you want to, if you want to come and challenge this thing, I think some people learned that the hard way during Fleet Week, trying to be cute. When
that ended badly.
Yeah, when the Beagle I'm gonna shoot it. Look, pew pew, and it's like. Does seeing? I mean, I don't know if y'all ever saw all of those guns just kind of come to life.
Oh,
it was
it's a sight to see. It's a sight.
Yeah, it was a butt pucker moment. You're like, oh, I'm glad I wasn't on the other end of that one. That was a lot. So yeah.
Thank you in the name of science for being a volunteer. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be noted too that bearing turret, the 4x130 millimeter ship busters, I believe those are size 12 railguns. So, which I think is the largest we know of. If I'm not mistaken, it's size 12. I could be wrong. But the key thing to remember there, it's 4 of those mounted. So that would be 4 size 12. Being able to fire at the same time. So that's pretty devastating.
And that's a size.
The Bengal says, "Oh, that Idris. That's an Idris. That's cute. Be ashamed if I put some holes in it."
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bengal comes along and says, "Hold my beer." No, but that answers one of the questions that we have from Pop and Space. So, what are the biggest size ship cap guns that we know of? You said size 12.
I believe that's the largest we know of. And that size 12 may not actually be a size 12. I think it's estimated because the guns are larger than the Idris's size 10 railgun by a significant amount. So it's been postulated that size 12, it's possible that's been data mined, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. But again, it's a quad mount, so it's big.
How
about you? This ship is bigger than Port Olisar.
Oh yeah, like a kilometer long. It's like they say Babylon 5 was 5 miles long. It's along that scale almost.
I really hope
it's almost a kilometer, so I don't think it's miles long yet.
Not quite. Yeah, not quite. What were you going to say, Kalawati?
I really hope, especially in Squadron 42, that CIG does a good job at painting the size and scale of these ships, because I think the last time, outside of what we've seen with the ships landing and bugging into the ships and taking them down to the surface, the last time we've properly seen the Bengal carrier to understand its actual size was when, I think it was in 2013 or 14. 2014 or 15, there was a work in progress model of the Bengal carrier just over some valleys, and that kind of allowed you to understand how large this thing was. So I really hope, in terms of the perspective, because even during the events, when you were looking at it, you didn't really understand, at least someone who didn't really know about it, you didn't really understand the sheer scale of this ship. And when I shared some footage to some of my friends who never really played the game yet, their reaction wasn't as as mind-boggling as, for example, that Retribution ship from, I think it was Call of Duty, was it Advanced Warfare or Infinity Warfare? They knew how large those ships were, those capital ships, right? So I'm just really looking forward to CIG painting that perspective, to really understand or allow us to see how much work they've put into it in terms of making it that size.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to one thing to think about in terms of scale, and it's always weird because with Star Citizen, you can parse things and all these different metrics. I believe the player character models in Star Citizen are 1.8 meters, or sorry, 1.8 meters tall. And this thing, so almost, 2 meters tall. And this thing is 990 meters long. That would essentially be like stacking, into, head to toe, like 400 player characters. You know what I mean? It is big.
I mean, I would hope that they're able to give you a sense of scale in the game, because but I think a lot of people are like me. Like, after a certain size scale, you just can't comprehend the scale of something. Because I know, like, when you're standing at the foot of a reclaimer, as big as that ship is, and you're looking up at it and seeing it, once you get inside, it seems so much bigger than the outside. So I don't, people like me, I can't really get a sense of scale. I just like sitting there with my jaw open, just looking at it. So pretty.
Yeah,
this ship is a suburb.
Pretty much.
I mean, technically, that's an accurate description. It is a city in space.
Oh wow, TV Liquid, man! Thanks for the raid. Welcome, TV Liquid, and all the Liquid.
Thanks, TV Liquid.
Thank you, Liquid. TV Liquid. Yeah, today we're talking about firepower. We're talking about the ships and from Idris on up inside it. And right now we're talking about the Bengal carrier. Well, we'll have to move on. But yeah, so thank you for that, TV Liquid. Okay, up next we have the Retribution. We have a couple of images for this. I'm going to read the description for the Retribution. Super Dreadnought. Retribution class Super Dreadnought is the largest capital ship constructed by the UEE and multiple ship manufacturers to take part in the Vanduul War. The UEE Retribution is the only known ship of this class that has been built. The ship is envisioned by Admiral Bishop as a vital mission piece of the Navy ship roster to combat the Kinship Kingship. A single Retribution-class vessel was built at the UEE Naval Skydock on MacArthur, and is armed with multiple bearings, 130 mm shipbuster railgun. So yeah, and that's all it has listed for its weapon. Just that one railgun. So Sergeant Graham, going to you for the Retribution. What do you have to say about that ship?
Well, it's when size matters. Oh, thank eggs and bacon.
Hey.
Thank you, Eggs and Bacon.
Hey. And welcome, Citizen Zivar.
Yeah. When talking about size matters, you know, we're talking about the Bengal at 990 meters. The Retribution is 2,700 meters long. So it is truly a monster. There's only supposedly in lore only one that's built. You know, it's listed as having multiple of those Buster railguns on it. You know, the Retribution has 2 turrets. They're midship. You can kind of see them in that top-down image right there, where there's that little center spine. There's 2 kind of like little trapezoid kind of little blocks there. Those are the turrets. And I think it holds dual or quad of those size 12 railguns. And that's just the turrets that are on it at this point. But the ship also on the sides, left and right, has multiple landing pads for other ships because it's just so big. It's not even a carrier, but you can just land near it. It's like a carrier.
So for comparison, if the Bengal is a suburb or a small city, the Retribution is like a metropolis.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
At the least two suburbs put together. You know what I'm saying? It's a big one.
Yeah.
I was wondering, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. I was just wondering, is it just me? But when I first saw the Retribution, that split in the front, I honestly thought that was some kind of charging railgun, electron beam kind of gun that was just like literally half of the ship. And I was like, is that how it's going to work, or is that something else? Or is that the shape of the ship?
So, you know, I'm not sure. I'm completely speculating. What I can say is that in the middle of that, you know, cavity, all the way towards the back, there is a center piece of 3D mesh that's there that could look like some giant energy beam weapon. It also could just be 3D greeble. Could mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that there's on the modeling side of things, that in between there's nothing else in there. Like, it doesn't look like there's no like fuel tanks or other turrets or anything. It's really just like a clear open area. So it could be something like the Javelin, because the Javelin, you know, inside its little cavity in the front of it has 2 huge, I think size 10 or size 12 torpedo tubes. This could have something like that for all we know.
Yeah, speaking of your work on a model, you want to talk about the fleet viewer in regard to Retribution for us?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people know we're working on the Starjump Fleet Viewer, and this is a preview of what the Retribution currently looks like in the Fleet Viewer.
Oh, baby.
And this is 2 size compared with an Idris M and an Idris K, and a Bengal, a Pegasus, and a Javelin. So you can kind of see right away the Retribution is a monster. The stuff that's out there is really rudimentary. So there's been a ton of modeling work going on by me and another friend of mine on the Retribution to get it into shape for the Fleet Viewer. It's kind of one of those Easter egg ships we're throwing in there. And when I found out I was coming on this episode, I was like, oh, this will be a good place to reveal the Retribution being in the Fleet Viewer. So there it is. It's a really cool ship. It's just an absolute monster, though. It's an absolute monster. And, you know, in lore, you know, it's not one ship manufacturer. It's actually multiple ship manufacturers, because it's so big that it requires that sort of effort. So,
like the command unit on that thing. The command unit on that thing is larger than the Idris's.
Yeah.
Can you give us a hint at when we may pick the fleet bureau to come online?
Well, I don't know of an exact date yet, but what I can say is that we are probably going to finish all the ships within, I don't know, probably 2 weeks. And and a lot of the back end has already been done. So it's really just taking all the ships and programming them in. So I would love if it came out, beginning of summer. That's kind of, I think, the goal. But, we may launch it with, a certain subset of features and then maybe update it a month later or a couple months later with more features. I think people can probably expect that. But one of the cool things we're trying to do is put in some of those Easter egg things. So you'll be able to spawn the Pegasus or the Retribution and possibly some other cool Easter eggy stuff. So primarily just to get a sense of scale, because it's, bigger is not always better in Star Citizen, obviously, because, even something like the Anvil Arrow is a really cool ship to have. It has a great purpose. But one of the things I think that is cool about Star Citizen that grabs new players is that initial sense of scale. You know what I mean? From the first time you take a ship from orbit down to a planet's surface, or the first time you encounter the Bengal flying by during Invictus, there's those moments that you can show them to someone who doesn't play Star Citizen, and they go, "Oh my, I need to play this game." So for me, being able to show this stuff sometimes is a good way to get new players in the game, and I'm all about that.
So I have another question about the Retribution. So in the back of the Retribution, is there a small license plate that says "We break for no one"?
There should be.
There should be. There isn't one as far as I know. But you know what? That should be another Easter egg that you add personally. That the startup government's here. We break for no one.
I should
inside somewhere.
I will say this: when you're thinking about the Retribution, its top bridge area, so the actual bridge and then the superstructure behind that, and that's just a small part of the Retribution. That whole area is the size of probably 8 Bengal bridges, just to give you an idea. And the weird thing is that the Retribution has geometry underneath the ship that is just as big, that I can't quite figure out what it is. It could be a massive weapon, or it could be more habitation or a secondary bridge or something. But underneath the Retribution, there's some really interesting stuff going on that makes me wonder kind of what it's going to be. Whether we'll see this ship in the verse or not, who knows? I don't know if they're...
I was going to say, we'll definitely see it in Squadron 42, but I don't know about Star Citizen.
A challenge.
Yeah.
Oh no, Uber Nerd!
Oh,
coming in with the raid.
Hey,
what's up? Welcome, nerds.
Hello, everyone from Uber Nerd channel. We talk about firepower. We talk about ships the size of Idris and bigger. Right now, we're talking about the Retribution. In fact, I would appreciate it if we could go back to the other picture that Startup Grim provided for the new various. Thank you. So yeah, this is work that Startup Grim is working on. So tell me, given the size of this ship, do you have to go at a piece build, or you go at it one piece at a time, or you just tackle it all at once, or what?
Luckily the ship is symmetrical, which makes it easier. And when I'm dealing with a symmetrical ship, I really just work on one side and then I mirror it. The one thing I will say though is the ship is absolutely massive from just a polygon count, and so one of the things I'm going to do to kind of, when we start promoting the Fleet Viewers release, hopefully very soon, is I'm going to start exporting, wallpapers of some of these ships. And the Retribution, I've already exported 10,000 pixel resolution images of it, and you're able to zoom down all the way to where you got the bridge full screen, so you can really explore it and you can check out its landing pads and all that. So yeah, it's a tough ship to model. It's actually not totally done. This is a little bit of an early image you're seeing here. There's a little bit more lighting work that needs to go on it. But yeah, it's if a ship is symmetrical, generally I'll work on one side and then I'll take all that work and duplicate it and flip it on its x-axis to build the other side of the ship. Asymmetrical ships, though, I can't do that. It's a lot more work.
Right, obviously.
So how was the Pegasus when you were doing that?
The Pegasus is a pain.
I'm just going to pick at that. You stream your modeling work on your stream occasionally, right?
Yeah, and it's not all me. There's one other collaborator that when this comes out, I'll definitely credit him. He does a lot of work, and then there's an artist in South America who has helped me model a lot of stuff too, especially on the Endeavor. He helped me rebuild that ship from scratch. But the Retribution, the Pegasus are kind of all me. I'm working on those primarily, and yeah, the Pegasus is a pain because it's completely asymmetrical. It doesn't share any components from one side to the other except for maybe the engines. So it is very much a starting from a scratch sort of thing. Yep.
Big Black Gaming, thank you for the 1,000 bits. We appreciate it. And if anyone has questions, make sure you submit questions using the token down below and below the chat. So you're talking about how many polygons this ship has. If you load this ship in your game on your computer on a regular computer, will it like melt your PC?
Thankfully, no, because it has no interior on the Fleet Viewer. I'm just working with exteriors. But what I can tell you is that, you know, something like the Javelin, just the Javelin, which at 480 meters with its interior is massive and can melt and can melt your computer if you're working with it like in a 3D program, which is something to say in regards to, you can sort of tip your hat to CIG's engine at that point, because, you know, we've had multiple Javelins in game. We've had the Bengal in game doing flybys and with some of their interior in there. And that just goes to show you that is frustrating as CIG's development bugs can sometimes be, its engine is handling some truly massive ships really well. Because if you were to load up the Javelin with its interior into like 3D Studio Max or some sort of 3D software, it really crawls to a halt and most of the time crashes your software multiple times. So, and that's just the Javelin. The Retribution, before you're even going to see some of these ships like the Bengal and stuff really appear in game in any substantial ways, they're going to have to get interior and exterior ship culling and other features like that active, which is also one of the reasons why I'm so excited for ship culling to get back on the progress tracker, because it's been removed several times, because that actually is going to be a pretty big performance helper, you know.
Definitely.
Because these ships, as complicated as their exteriors seem, their interiors are just as complicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you got to remember they have tons and, you know, millions and millions and millions of polygons inside them as well, just making up that interior mesh.
So, I'm going to ask you to throw something in chat. Just say hi or something in chat so people can follow you and people can follow your progress with the Fleet Viewer models and other work that you do. So, yeah, definitely give Stars Up a follow if you love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the Twitch channel and Star Jump. You can just type Star Jump Star Citizen on YouTube. You'll find us. I'm constantly posting stuff up there. And as we're nearing completion on the Fleet Viewer, and we're really getting to that point now, you're going to start seeing, promotions and us hyping it up now, and probably start revealing features and hopefully soon start revealing dates and stuff. So, now is the time, if you're interested in the Fleet Viewer, to definitely start paying attention, because we're to that point now where, stuff's going to start getting out there. And, big shout out to people like Lunfacy, who does Starship 42, which is the other Fleet Viewer that's out there. He's a friend and he's actually a supporter of what we're doing, and we support him. His Fleet Viewer's got different features than ours. Ours kind of leans on being high fidelity, while his leans on the ability to just move your camera any and everywhere and all that stuff. So there's room for both, and I think we'll be able to complement each other a little bit, for those of you, trying to visualize your fleet and stuff.
I have a quick question about your Fleet Viewer.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. Will you be able to take the JSON files in order to build the fleet?
You will. Yeah. Yep. You will. Yep. And while I can't totally get into a lot of it yet, because we're still mapping it out, the Fleet Viewer is really step one. We have a bigger project that will utilize Fleet Viewer's assets, but it's going to be, we hope, a big game changer in the world of like Star Citizen org and fleet management, especially org management. So, big things to come.
Matt Dow, thank you for the subscription.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
man.
that's
Yeah.
I think that's it for the UEE side of the show. Now we're going to take on the Vanduul side. I believe we have a video, so here we go. Oh, okay. So it's just so the audio is just the background music, but we can talk about it during this. But yes, I believe this is the we have quite a few Vanduul ships, but I'll just watch. Sorry.
That was it.
Kinship and Driller.
Yeah. So we have that was a video for the Vanduul. We have quite a few unconfirmed ships. Like the smaller ones are called the Light Fighter, the Hunter, and the Mauler. I believe we have images for these, but not much is known about these. The Hunter itself is known as a Vanduul Hunter. Vanduul Hunter is a Corvette. The Light Fighter is comms, and the Mauler is a cruiser. And those are the ones at the bottom. So not much is known about those ships except for their exist and their name. And I don't know when these images were taken, but that might be out of date. So don't expect these to be exactly what you see when you eventually do see them. But the two other stuff that we do know a bit more about is one is the Driller, and that's the Harvester carrier. Yeah, so they are in concept, but not much is known about the smaller of the Light Fighter, Mauler, and the Hunter. So yeah, have any comments about these?
FC, I think I sent you that picture. I think that's the only picture that we have from CIG with regards to the Hunter Destroyer, but it was never confirmed if that really is the Hunter Destroyer.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing we do know is that is obviously they're keeping the Vanduul fleet pretty close to their vest, which is great. But if you do follow the progress tracker, at any given time, either the EU or US ship production team has Vanduul fleet in the pipeline. It has been going on for a long time and is still going on. You know, we know they probably play a huge role in Squadron 42. So my best guess is all these ships are done. We know that the smaller fighters like the Scythe and all that got redesigned. So I personally feel those ships got redesigned because whatever these bigger ships turned into warranted that redesign. So I'm sure they look fantastic.
Especially with 10 years to work on these ships. Well, Lefty, thank you for the subscription. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these ships in the game, and I hope if there's any cataclysm. Thank you for the 5 gifts. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have to be Retribution and the Bengal or any indication, these will be very detailed, especially when it comes to the alien design language.
Yeah.
So we have some information about the Driller. Let me see who is up next. Just me. So I'll read about the Driller. So the Driller is a Vanduul Harvester carrier. It's a large transport vessel with massive engines capable of atmospheric flight. It is used to deploy harvester during raid to harvest resources. So yeah, that is the video for it. So yeah, Kawadi, are you familiar with the driller?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely remember this trailer. I remember the reactions that we had when all of us saw this trailer.
Yeah.
And I have a question for Grim. With regards to the Vanduul ships, I think I remember them saying when they were developing these ships, they had to kind of make some compromises or redesigns because the party counts, or I can't remember it, but the surface was so expensive from the original concepts that they had to make some changes, right? I know from your experience, have you had to do anything like with regards to that?
So yeah, that's a great question. To be totally honest with you, the assets I have, especially on the driller, do not look like what we're seeing here, which means the driller looked like one thing previously, and then it has probably been iterated multiple times. One thing, there was an Inside Star Citizen a while back. I can't remember. It's probably a year or two ago at this point. And there was a very short clip of them showing a hallway inside of a Vanduul ship. And there was these spheres kind of floating on the left and right. And those spheres had shaders on them, right? So textures, 3D textures. And those shaders, they were showing off the shader system essentially for the Vanduul fleet, and they were showing how it was like organic and it could move and all this stuff. But I think that what they were doing there is they were showing us what the Vanduul fleet was evolving into, because there are tricks you can do in 3D with shaders to make things look much more complicated from a mesh standpoint than they actually are. And I think, and they've never done that on other ships, like showed off just shaders on a sphere. And I feel like they did that specifically because all the new Vanduul ships, and especially this Harvester here, to me, I'm speculating a little bit as a 3D artist who works in the film and television industry, it looks like to me this uses some shader techniques that keep the poly count reasonable and usable while making the ship look much more complicated. So if that gives you any idea. So I think they've really worked out their hard surface and spline based shader system into something that can make Vanduul fleets a reality. So
yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. This is. I mean, I don't own. Well, I own the Merchantman, obviously, and the Defender. So I don't own many alien ships. I do like the design language of the Vanduul, but it's not something I really want to own. But it's really nice to look at, especially this shot right here of the driller going to the sunset or whatever that is.
Some of this, some of this you can really tell, and not that I'm telling people to do this at all, but some of this you can really tell. If you were to export a Star Citizen ship as a 3D model, like from the game, right? It's going to look good, but it's not going to look exactly how it looks in game. And the reason is that some of that geometry is handled by shaders. So it's a trick. They're tricking you. It's not, it doesn't have all the detail you think it is, you think it has. And it's only when that shader is applied through, the Star Engine that it takes on the final look. And out of all the ships that I've seen personally, the alien ships are the ones that really lean on that shader trick. So for example, the Defender, if it's not using some of its like normal mapping and bump mapping on its shaders, there's a lot of details missing on the Defender when you pull it out of the game. So I think the Vanduul is going to lean really heavily on that. So I actually think this driller concept we're seeing here, besides a few updates, probably in the form of how its turrets look, I think this is going to be how it looks in game.
Yeah, I mean they put a lot of work into it, obviously. Yep. So I don't see them changing it here. Maybe a few tweaks here and there over the years, but yeah, I tend to agree. All right. So up next we have the Kingship. Go, Matt. Well, Kawadi, would you mind reading the Kingship, please?
Yeah, sure thing. So the Vanduul Kingship, UEE military designation, is the apparent flagship of Vanduul clans. It is a dreadnought, fleet carrier, command and control ship, and assault transport combined in a single hull. It is the largest Vanduul ship known to humanity, and is reported to be between 1,500 to 3,000 meters long.
6,000 meters long. Yeah, it's a big ship. So yeah, Graham, can you wait to get your hands on some of these?
Oh yeah, no, they're amazing. I would I would love to, But with that, one of the things that we try to do is start jump like with my cinematics and just other things that I can't even really talk about. Obviously, I want to respect what CIG is trying to do, and especially with the Vanduul stuff and Squadron 42 stuff in general, they want that kept mostly under wraps. So, even if I had the models, I probably wouldn't put them in Fleet Viewer, but I wish I had them. I'm really excited for just the smaller Vanduul ships that we can own, getting those new designs because they look fantastic. And the Kingship is another one of those that I think has gone through multiple redesigns because like the Banu Merchantman, you can find imagery of it out there, but it always looks different from image to image. It looks, one way here and another way here and another way here. So I think what we've seen, without seeing it really, is over the course of the last 8 years of development, the Vanduul have been refined and refined and refined and refined. And I think they're going to be just like, we hear all the time how the Idris is like the hero ship, of Squadron 42, and it's got all this detail and it's going to be amazing. I think that's going to be the case for the Vanduul as well. Not only their clans, but their character models, their ships, all that stuff is going to be incredible.
So I got a question for Gomab. If you find like a derelict kingship or maybe even a derelict villa, do you just salvage it, or would you be tempted to try to get it running to make it back to a warship?
It depends. All right. How many folks? How big is my org? How many resources do we have? Will the juice be worth the squeeze? I mean, definitely. I think, while everybody else is trying to get that Javelin up and running, I'll be like, ha, I got a kingship.
Yeah, sure, but go ahead.
But no, I mean, again, my hope is to do that is going to take at least months and months and months. And the bigger the ship, it should take even longer. So a kingship should be the sole, focus of an entire massive org like test or some of the bigger orgs, right? That should be their sole focus, is to everything that they're doing is in order to fund and provide resources in order to get this kingship up and running. If they were to do something like that.
But given that the Vanduul are, the enemies of the UEE, wouldn't you be afraid of someone coming across it and just blowing it up without knowing that it's humans in charge of it or anything like that? Or you just you wouldn't care about that?
I mean, it's the same thing if you fly a Blade or a Glaive or any of the Vanduul ships right now, right? I mean, people see you and they can tell if you're based upon your transponder or Moby signature or whatever, whether or not you're hostile or friendly. Hopefully they don't just shoot first, ask questions later type situation. I mean, hopefully people are scanning before they start firing, not be like, oh my God, kingship, shoot it. I mean, first of all, that's probably not a wise thing to do if you run across a kingship. I imagine if you're going to come across, if you're going to try to destroy something like that, I'm gonna need you to bring a fleet. You know what I'm saying? A few Idrises or whatever. So with that amount of coordination need to actually take it on, I would hope you do a little bit of due diligence first. But who knows?
I picture to destroy a kingship, it's going to have to be an Independence Day Will Smith scenario where you're flying inside of it, you drop the bomb, you leave. Right. I mean, one interesting thing though, if when you're reading the driller's description, and we sort of know this with Idris's and Krakens, with the driller, it said that it's capable of atmospheric flight. We don't really hear that about the Javelin, obviously, and we know that there was a Javelin that got too close to a gravity well of a planet and crashed. That's in lore, I think, Paul Shelley could probably correct me on that, but I think I'm right. And I would assume that is very much the case with ships like a Kingship, Retribution, all that. These are ships that are not going to be anywhere near planets. These are going to be system controller type ships. You know what I mean? I could even see CIG in the future releasing. So you know how we have systems now, right? So you can go to Stanton, but you'll go to Pyro or wherever. I could see them in the future if they putting places that we can jump to that aren't systems per se, but just voids in space that maybe have derelicts in them, like Kingship or Bengal derelicts. And because that's going to be such a complicated space, not only with the ship, its interior mesh, AI players, everyone around it, fighting each other, blowing each other up, battles on board the ship, all that. That's going to be a really taxing thing on the servers. So I almost wonder if some of these monster ships like the Kingship, if they do make an appearance, will they just be a place that data runners, discover this jump point that leads to a Vanduul, a Vanduul wreck, and that we can all go there. Think of it more like a raid or a dungeon in an MMO, you know what I mean? Where it's not really a system; it's just a jump point to an objective, essentially, primarily to keep performance up. Because I have a hard time believing that a system like Stanton could support something like a Bengal or a Kingship derelict with a full interior and players battling it out for that. But we'll see. We don't know.
When server meshing.
Yeah.
Each Kingship and a Bengal will be essentially their own.
Its own server, maybe. Yeah, that's another way to think about it. Yeah, 100%. So, and to answer your question, I definitely don't work for CIG. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Big Buckeye boy, none of us work for CIG, okay? We're just gonna our thoughts on the game.
Well, we all work for CIG. Well, we pay them for the honor to do so.
That's true.
Kawadi, do you have any thoughts about the Kingship?
I'm staying far away from the Kingship. Far away, because the thing is, if you don't know about the Vanduul, they are a resource hungry mother. Because remember, if one of their ships gets destroyed, they aren't going to just leave it there. So by the time you get, you actually go to a wreck, even for a Vanduul capital ship, you can. I'm 100% guaranteed, or there. I'm sure that there's a 100% guarantee that you're gonna have a lot of trouble, getting even just hull-based resources or hull scraping resources from that Vanduul capital ship, because those Vanduul will want to get their resources back. They want your resources, so you can imagine how much they will want to get their resources back. So I'm staying far away unless I'm in some kind of org or something like that, because I ain't risking it.
Well, hell, and what's worse is if they if somebody took them out, do you want to mess with them?
No. No. Colin, exactly. For you. So say someone would give you a free kingship, okay? You can just have it outright, but you have to give up your allure for it. Would you do it?
No. Because by the time I own a kingship, I know every single person in the galaxy, every single Vanduul is going to be on my tail trying to get that back. I'd rather own an Aurora. I'm totally fine. Aurora for life.
Is Griff playing us the wrap it up music here?
It's on a size comparison video. I believe one of our mods provided it to him. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So up next we have the Q&A section. So yes, if you have questions, go ahead and hit that token and submit a question. So up first is Big Black Gaming. How many systems do panelists think should be in PU before access to these ships are allowed? Again, I'll ask, how many systems do panelists think should be in the PU before access to these ships are allowed? So like say 2 or 3 systems, and then we get like a Javelin or Idris. What do people think?
Yeah, I'd say 3 systems for something the size of a Idris or Kraken. a Kraken, for example, can be manned by 10 people. It doesn't require, I know Kraken isn't on our list today, but it's another 272 meter long capital. It can be manned by 10 people. So I think you could use it. But yeah, 2 to 3 systems is what I'm thinking. Maybe 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. Mainly because, for example, right, what I'm envisioning is the kind of money that you need to earn to upkeep these ships, and in some cases, for example, trading. Let's say you only had a 1-star system like we do now. You're not gonna necessarily find much or make much of a profit, by trading across a single star system, and that's just one kind of profession. So having multiple star systems, especially when it comes to transporting or doing things from one point to another in terms of distance and risk, I think the more star systems the better, because the more activity that you'd have to that you can find, or things that you can trade or do anything to really make more money over a period of time to upkeep these ships is definitely going to be needed. So 3 systems, I think, is going to be a good sweet spot.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah. So number of systems is great, but I think the player count is going to be the real metric that we're going to have to go by. I think we're going to have at least, in order for these ships to mean anything, it doesn't matter how many systems there are. We could still be in Stanton, but if we're less than, and I'm going to shoot the moon here, man. If we're less than 500 players in a single system, or at least, if we don't have things like NPC traffic at starports and landing zones and cities and things like that, if the game isn't, if the server that we log into isn't able to be full already with life, whether it be player or NPC, adding these types of ships into it will only consolidate those limited number of people or limited number of resources that are already there. So now, of course, that will coincide with the expansion into more systems, right? As we're able to bring on server meshing and, from static to dynamic or whatnot, we'll be able to expand to more and more servers. But I think increasing the player count is what is going to be what's going to make these ships be viable in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had another question from Potten Face, but we already answered it. Just said, what are the biggest size cap guns we know of? And Grim, you said 10 or 12.
We definitely have size 10, but possibly 12.
And that's speculated.
For the 2,000 bits. Yeah, they're speculating. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Django Migo asked, will melee weapons get upgraded? Will we have a lightsaber-like weapons? I don't think we have lightsabers. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. No lightsabers. I'm hoping for something like Mass Effect. Maybe we'll have grenades and stuff like that we could have in the game, but I don't think we'll get those either.
We will have the staves, the lances from the Vanduul.
Yeah.
But oh god, if the day they bring in lightsabers in this game is no, I don't even want to think about it.
To answer that previous question, by the way, so while this is not a turret, the Javelin carries 32 size 12 torpedoes. The Javelin.
Damn.
So there's really no hard limit on the size of weapons. I'm sure CIG could get pretty creative.
So what you're saying is somebody in the Javelin could just delete Port Everest if they got pissed off.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But what I think you may see is, even if they do cap it at like size 10, which I'm pretty confident they get bigger than that, because the guns on the top of the Javelin, again, they look to be size 12, but regardless, what CIG does is they just double them up or quadruple them up. So then you get a 4 turret mount or a dual mount, size 10 or whatever. So that firepower just starts getting exponentially worse.
So we have one last question, and I think this is the last question of the evening for us. So a U.S. carrier aircraft carrier uses CV or CVN next to its name. Fast tech sub uses SSN, and so on. All UEE ships are labeled as UEE Idris, as an example. If there was a UES flash card, I should have pre-read this question. If there was a UES flash card, you wouldn't know what type of capital ship it was without being specifically told. Do you feel like missing the naming convention markers of a UE Navy ship? So do you feel we're missing the naming convention markers of a UE Navy ship? Do we need a CV or CVN and or USS for like the Enterprise and stuff like that, Star Trek? Do you think we need a naming convention in the game?
People can name their ships whatever they want. If they're org, if they're org, if they want to designate ships, as certain things in their org, then go ahead. If the UEE Navy wants to designate stuff, I think the UEE, don't they have ship designations in their stuff? I don't think.
That is the question. Like, should ship have designation to it so people will know what type of ship it is if they see the name?
Yeah, I mean, if you can see the name, you could probably scan the ship.
Yeah, I personally hope, especially with ships this valuable from a real dollar standpoint, but also an in-game value, I personally would love if at some point in the future, you can, like most airplanes and stuff have transponders on them. If you could activate a transponder for your ship that says, "Hey, I am a UEE Idris out here, an Idris M, whatever," and kind of broadcast who you are, which could be a deterrent. But if you're not broadcasting openly on what type of ship you are, I would hope that you could alter your EM signature, which we know that signature gameplay is going to be in, because they've showed us some of that. I would hope that you could maybe alter that and try to disguise your ship as something else, maybe at a distance. And I don't mean if someone's got visual of it, obviously, like with their eyes, but like if they're scanning it from, across halfway across the system, if a herald is scanning and they pick up an interesting EM signature, maybe there's maybe an Idris, for example, could equip some sort of computer blade that masks it as a 890 jump if its EM signature is within a certain range. I don't know, but it would be cool if you could play with that a little bit to sort of disguise these ships as best you could, because again, these are going to be the biggest targets for players. 100%.
Be like, I'm an Aurora, but I identify as an 890 jump.
Yeah. Well, and we've even seen that gameplay. They showed it off where there was a I forget what ship it was, but it was a big ship, and there was a bunch of smaller ones like crowding around it because the bigger ship's signature hid the smaller ship, so they were effectively invisible from scans. And while we don't have that in game right now, that type of stuff could be so cool in the future if we could do that. And again, it could give those capital ships another reason to exist. Because we're going to need a lot of reasons for those to be pulled out. I think Gomab said it. These things are going to be huge resource hogs, so you need as many reasons to pull these out of the hangar as possible.
Yeah, the question, I think it's talk about classification and CIG giving classifications, like for maybe like a heavy fighter or even like a medium fighter should have these designations. I'm okay with them having the designation or not. That's just me. But I can see how a lot of people would want designation. So, like, if you would like trying to decide if you want to take on a certain ship, having a designation would make or break that decision. Like, if it's too big for you to handle, if it has you could tell that it's a Idris or something like that, and your fleet is not quite capable of handling the Idris, then yeah. But if it's something, but then maybe they could turn off that transponder marker, like you said, and you can decide to risk it or not risk it, depending on what you think the reward will be. So I'm either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a strategic value of you not knowing when I'm flying. Maybe, if I'm the Rocinante, right? You never know. You know what I'm saying? I could be an Idris or I could be somebody in a 100i, right? You never know.
Or maybe, and this is again speculating, but maybe in the future of Star Citizen, there's and some orgs or even particular players who become sort of infamous, and maybe there is a player-made infamous Idris out there, and it wants to kind of cloak itself as best as possible because when it enters a system, it's the meta target of everyone because everyone wants to take down Joe Blow's Idris because he's famous in the Star Citizen community. Who knows? You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons I could see why you'd want to conceal that. Obviously, that changes, I think, when you're in a visual range. But we hear that term a lot, anyways. Whenever you watch something like Star Trek and something, you know what I mean? They always talk about, it's becoming in visual range. Well, now you can really identify it versus just getting an assumption on it. So I've always been interested in that scanning gameplay and how that's going to turn out, specifically in relation to capital ships.
Yeah, this is why I'm planning on keeping my mercenary in like a system like Terra, because I mean, not to hide like an ego or anything, but I'm pretty sure someone want to say, "Oh, I blew up this fast car Benny Merchantman." So yeah, I'm keeping that as safe as possible.
Oh man, yeah, that was my whole reason for playing this game. That's the only reason why I'm still back. It's for the opportunity. Like day one, I'm sending a Retaliator missile right at your BMM.
Oh, come on. Can you imagine you flying out in your Aurora and people know that it's your Aurora and you're targeted just because it's you?
Hey, I'm going to make a name for myself where you can't catch this Aurora. My Aurora will be legendary, right? So if you want to come and get it, you can meet me in nullsec space if you're brave enough.
Talent accepted. I can hear someone say that in the community now. So I think that's it for the Q&A. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Sergeant Williams, thank you for joining us again. Appreciate you having you on and give us your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you to my co-hosts, Karate and Gomab. They're both regulars at this point. And I'm Fastcard SC. Appreciate you. Appreciate being on and you having me as well. I want to talk about future shows. I'll cover Soul Talks. So Soul Talk is something. Soul Talk is a show we have on Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. UTC. We talk what's going on in the community. Mostly we talk about Star Citizen Live because ISC is taking a break right now. We also sell merchandise. So we sell t-shirts, mugs, gamepad, hats, what have you. Check out the merchandise link down below. Soul Voices. Gomab, you know about Soul Voices. You want to tell us what Soul Voices is about?
Yeah, Soul Voices is our new show. It's every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. each time, 5 p.m. UTC. It's a great show. It's a talk show. We invite the community to come in and have a conversation with us. With some fun special guests here and there that I guarantee you'll enjoy. So come check us out on Saturdays. It's not all the time, but sometimes when they're when they're available, when they're not busy out there working the trap, they they come join us, man, on the stream and give us their opinions. So. Be sure to drop in on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. UTC.
And Karate, you want to tell us about our next show? Basically, we're just on the screen. It's good enough.
Yeah, we are going and doing some farming. We're going to talk about some agri-farming. I know that there are a good bit of players that are interested in the agricultural, growing crops, and all that kind of gameplay. So come check us out. We're going to have some really nice ideas, really nice discussions, some speculations to see how that's going to go, how that's going to evolve from what we see as props to something that we could actually do. So look forward to that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so that's 8 p.m. Eastern, midnight UTC next Sunday. So please come join us for that. Thank you for everyone who rated us. Thank you for all the people who donated bits. Thank you for all the subscribers. And to just thank everybody in the community in general. We appreciate that. And I believe up next we are going to raid Cruising Gaming. So send him our love and our appreciation. Oh, they had a fun time on yesterday on the Fight or Fight show. So I don't know how they do it because they got to keep up the energy, but he has a lot of energy. Thank you for the follow, Commander 14 Flip. That's a nice name. Love it. Appreciate it. So yeah,
Nice.
Take y'all out next time on Soul Citizens. Peace, love, and soul. Take care,
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, people.